Hi, this is Tina Walker today, and my video that I would like to share with you is my October project for Shimmerz paints. I created a Halloween mini box, and I'll walk you through in my video on how I created the amazing texture on my box. So the first thing I did was to grab just a box that I had in my stash, and I went ahead and cut the hinge off because I just wanted to use the box. And I covered the whole thing with some gesso, and you can see me doing that there. And I let that dry completely. And then I wanted to add some texture to the inside edges of the box. So I took, here in a minute, I took some tidy whitey textures, and I just painted that on to the inside of the box and let that dry. And it's awesome. I love the grittiness of textures. It creates just an amazing texture to your projects. Before we get to that, I wanted to use a piece. This is an ATC card. It's actually cork. And I'm going to go ahead and use that for the back of my little box. So you can see me just cutting it down to size here. I had these in my stash. I think it's probably from 7 Gypsies a while ago. You can see me just making sure it fits in there. And I thought it was actually adhesive on the back, and it may have been, but when I pulled the backing off, there was nothing there, but that's okay. I'll just glue it down when I'm ready for that. So now you can see me applying the textures, the tidy whitey, and I'm just painting it on, not being overly specific on how it is, but I'm just going to do that on the inside edges of the box just to create some texture. So when I go to spray it, then that spray will seep into those nooks and crannies that the textures create. The textures and the Dazzelerz are awesome because you can use them with stencils, you can use them as paint like this if you want kind of a bumpy surface to your project, but it's a great project or great product. So I went ahead and heat set that and let that dry completely. So now you can see me just starting to build some color to the inside of it. The first one that I used, I believe that's Chick-a-dee Spritz. I think I might have also used the yellow Coloringz, which is no yoking as well. So now I just set that aside so it can dry. So now I'm going to build some texture to that cork piece. So I used some Dazzelerz for that, and you can see me applying it right to the background with this star stencil I have. I thought that'd be kind of a nice background for the Halloween theme for my mini box. And I'm going to set that aside and let that dry. Now I'm going to add some color to the cork, and I'm using the same colors, the Chick-a-dee, the no yoking, and then I think I also am using some oranges to the background, and I believe I used Sunset Strip and Mandarin Mai Tai for the background. And you can see me just putting the colors on, letting them blend together, and dabbing off when I'm done. I wanted it to be a little more vintage looking and dark, so I went ahead and applied that is Vibez Before Dawn, which is actually one of my favorite colors, and that really added some of that vintage look. So you saw me also adding more colors to the inside of the background just to bring that yellow more to an orange. So I had made some molds out of a broken Charlotte doll, and I'm just applying some heavy super heavy gesso to that just to build some texture, and I put it aside. I'm also going to add some foil pieces to the inside of my box, and you can see me just applying some alcohol ink to those foil pieces, and I'm just letting it blend again, kind of in the same color theme with the oranges and the blacks and the browns, since this is a Halloween box. And I'm just blending the alcohol ink on there. If you've never used alcohol ink, it's probably besides Shimmerz products, one of my favorite products that are out there, because I love recoloring metal pieces for my projects, especially my 3-dimensional ones, and alcohol ink is perfect for that. So I'm always recoloring metal instead of just the bare metal that it usually comes in. You can see that beautiful orange color that's created with the alcohol ink. So the box was not quite orange enough for me, so I went ahead and also put my Bleeding Heart of Coloringz onto that, and that really brought it to the orange color that I was looking for. I didn't want a really bright orange. So now I'm going to add some texture to the outside of my box. So I cut up some strips of just old vintage dictionary paper, and I'm going to go ahead and apply that to the outside edges and to the back of my box. And I'm just using Mod Podge to apply it. And you can see me just cutting the strips kind of to size, so it's less trimming in the end. And I'm just going to go ahead and apply a thin layer of Mod Podge to the sides and the back. And I'm going to go ahead and just apply those dictionary pages. It's great. I love the thinness of it, but you get immediate texture with the words and everything. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint over that a little bit just to kind of grunge it up a little. You see me adding my back piece. I just folded over the edges from the sides just so it created a kind of a clean edge to the back of my box. And you can pick up these vintage books at your local antique store too. I use the vintage dictionary paper all the time. And you can see I'm not real specific with measuring. I just lay it on and cut it and kind of let it go. And just make sure with the Mod Podge you put a layer down first, and then you put a layer over top, and it just really protects the whole thing. And you see that's great texture right off the bat without even painting it. You have great texture with the dictionary paper. So now I wanted to start painting my Broken Charlotte resin doll. So I am actually using some of the new Inklingz, the Tarnished Treasure, and I'm just applying that on there, and then Gosh Garnet just to add a little bit more orange. And I'm just building the colors onto the Broken Charlotte doll. And again, not being really specific on how I'm painting it, not really caring if I cover the whole piece or not, just so it kind of creeps into all the cracks on the Broken Charlotte doll. And I actually do add several other layers of color onto the doll. And so I'm just going to set it aside and let it dry. So now, once that's dry, I'm adding more color. So now I'm using some Shimmerz paints, and I believe I use Marigold on the doll. So I like, again, there's like a grit inside the Shimmerz paints. So I'm just mixing it up, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint the doll with that, and it creates more texture on top of that heavy gesso. And it looks very orange on here, so I do tone that down a bit because that was a little too bright for what I was going for. So now I'm going to age up my box, and I'm going to use heavy metal just to start aging up my box. That's another one of my favorite colors. I love this subtleness, but it adds instant age. I like that old vintage look. So now you can see me just, again, with more of that Tarnished Treasure Inklingz going on top of that orange, and it really tones it down and really starts aging it even more. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue the cork to the background. A lot of times when I create these boxes, I use a piece of score tape and then liquid adhesive. The score tape kind of holds it in place till the liquid adhesive actually dries. I know it's overkill, but I'm always afraid things like that, especially since it's holding so much on the inside, that the glue will come loose. So I do tend to use both when I'm adhering things like this. So you can just see me gluing it down in, and that looks pretty great inside the box. So now I wanted to grunge up the side some more, so I'm using the Tarnished Treasure again. I'm just applying it on with the paintbrush on top of the heavy metal. And that created just this awesome shimmerness, but still that vintage look that I was going for on the outside of the paper, but yet you can still see the dictionary paper through it. It turned out beautiful, I think. So now I want to add some more to my Broken Charlotte doll. So now I'm actually taking Blingz. I'm using High Ho Silver to that, and again, that's so full of texture with all that grittiness inside that Blingz. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint that on the doll, and it turned out amazing. I love all the depth of color from all the different shades of oranges and blacks that I had on my doll. So you can see me just applying it. Again, not being too specific on where it goes or where it doesn't go, just to add more texture to my doll. So now I had printed out some printables, some Halloween printables, and I'm just aging those up a little bit with some Distress ink. I'm using black soot right there, and I'm just going around the outside edges of them just because I wanted to tone that white down just to make it look more vintagey. So I'm just aging up my paper pieces that will go onto my board. So now I'm going to use more alcohol ink. On the side of my box, I created a handle. This is, I think, 7 Gypsies again. And I just don't like the look of bare metal. I have to age it up. And again, alcohol ink's perfect for that. So I'm using the same colors I used on the previous piece, and I'm just applying it to it so it creates that old, worn look to the metal. And I'm just mixing it around with the alcohol ink. So inside my box, I have 3 little glass vials, and I love filling glass vials with glitter. So now I'm just going to add 3 different colors of glitter inside my bottles, and then I do age the bottles with alcohol ink too, just again to create that common vintagey look to the whole thing. So there's my 3 glass bottles, and I always glue the cork down. So I just take it off, add a little bit of glossy accents to the edge. That way the cork doesn't come out and you don't have glitter all over the place. So now I'm going to attach the metal handle. These are kind of cool because it has brads built in, so all you really have to do is poke your holes and the brads secure it right in place. So it's super easy, and it actually fit the box almost perfectly. That wasn't really planned. It was kind of like an afterthought to add that to the box, but it fit pretty well. And I don't mind that the brad shows through on the other side. It's just more added dimension and texture to the inside of the box. You could always cover that up if you chose to, but I really didn't mind the brad showing through. So you can see it's super easy to attach to the box. It would look really cute too if the box was actually horizontal and I had done my little scene horizontal and it would have been like a pool knob. After I did this, I thought that would be cute as well. So now those metal pieces that I had previously colored with alcohol ink, you can see me going and adding some more score tape to the back of one, and I'm going to put that into the bottom of my box. Again, it was just more interest. Instead of just a plain box there, it just added something special, a little bit of shine with the metal piece. So now I'm going to go ahead and start assembling the inside of the box. This was just a wooden ball that I had from a previous project that I never used. So I pulled it out because I thought it would be kind of cute if my Broken Charlotte doll actually stood up on top of it and the glass vials were sitting down below. So I go ahead and glue that in there. I'm using foam tape to really pop the Broken Charlotte mold doll off the back to make it look like it is actually standing on top of the ball, because if I hadn't done that, it would have been pushed all the way to the back. I use foam tape quite a bit in my 3-dimensional projects just for that purpose. So I'm just layering up several layers of foam tape to get to the height that I wanted to make it look like the doll was actually sitting on top of the ball. And just like before, I use either score tape or foam tape and wet adhesive just to glue it down to make sure it really is not moving as it dries. So now I'm going to go ahead and start adding my glass vials. I'm just looking to see what side of the bottle I want out. When I applied the alcohol ink, which you can see on the bottles there, I just wanted kind of a cool, interesting, the cool, interesting side to be sticking out visible. And I'm just layering them and gluing them to there. I put a little bit of glue on the back and then the glue on the bottom, and then just layer them onto my box. So what I did for the bottom dangles, I actually took another piece of one of those metal pieces that I had colored with alcohol ink, and then I had these hooks in my stash, and honestly I don't know where they came from, and I glued them down previously and then hooked the dangles from that, and it was super easy. I didn't have to punch holes through the bottom of my box. It just attached it right to the metal piece and then adhered them, and then I glued a knob to the top with some string so it could hang, and added my other embellishments, and now my box is done, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I hope you liked my Halloween box project today. I look forward to sharing my projects with you next month. Thanks for stopping by.